We've waited and we've waited and we've waited some more. But now nearly 2 years after BMW first showed these bikes out to the world, they've launched the G310R and the G310GS in India. Now by now it's common knowledge that both these motorcycles are produced in partnership with TVS at the plant in Hosur. But there's still the very valid question, how do these made in India motorcycles actually fare on Indian roads? And today, that's what we're about to find out.
BMW gave us limited time to ride both these bikes today, but we spent plenty of time with them at the launch a couple of days ago, and they do make a great first impression. Both the G310R and the G310GS take liberal inspirations from their bigger siblings, and that's a wonderful thing. In the case of the G310R, the philosophy comes from the mighty S1000R liter class street naked, and this motorcycle packs similar clean and muscular lines, but of course in a smaller package. The 310R uses a rather simple looking triangular halogen headlamp, but the body colored shrouding on both sides adds class and aggression. A chunky fuel tank and large plastic flanks make for a pleasing design, and there's some jewelry on display as well in the form of a BMW badge on either side. The lower part of the engine is on display too, with proud BMW stamping clear for the eye to see. A small belly pan under the engine rounds off what is a clean and neatly executed design. Over at the rear, you will find a point of interest in the fender-mounted brake lamp and efficiently integrated rear grab rails. If you're wondering why some bits look familiar, that would be because the TVS Apache RR310 runs the same wheel design, gold forks, and has a very similar looking exhaust as well. As for the G310GS, the first thing that strikes you is how much bigger it looks than the R. Every dimension is bigger on this bike, and an ADV style beak works with a different outer shell on the fuel tank to give it a rather authentic adventure style look. The windscreen may seem small for an adventure bike, but I'm no fan of these oversized windscreens on adventure bikes, and the smaller unit of the GS does well to provide some amount of wind protection, but it also lets plenty of refreshing air through to the rider. Beneath the skin though, the GS features the same 11-litre fuel tank as the R, and that's a bit of a letdown for an adventure motorcycle. Continuing further down to the side, the GS uses a similar single-piece seat, but it sits much higher than the friendly 785mm seat height on the R. In fact, this will play quite a big role in the G310 buying process, because the seat on the R is very friendly and lower than most of its rivals. But the GS's 835mm seat height will be intimidating to shorter riders. If you must have a GS, but you'd like a lower seat height, the company will sell you an accessory unit that lowers it by 15mm. Further to the back, a large and sturdy cast aluminium luggage rack adds to the rugged look, but has a coated payload of just under 10 kilos. Fit and finish levels are pleasingly high on both bikes, and the GS gets a small addition to the switchgear which allows you to deactivate the ABS. Both bikes also use a similar digital display that has plenty of information to offer, but the screen is quite small and you have to scroll through it to see all the relevant data.
It's plainly obvious that these are two handsome and really well-built machines, but if your priority is to be noticed in your shiny new BMW motorcycle, the GS is definitely going to attract more attention.
The designs are fresh on top, but the BMWs are actually quite familiar under the skin. That's because the TVS Apache RR310 has already given us a wonderful first taste of this new trellis frame and 313cc reverse inclined motor. Performance figures are the same 34 horsepower and 28 Nm of torque, and the 6-speed gearbox is similarly precise. As with the RR310, the BMWs don't get a slipper clutch, a feature that's now becoming quite mainstream with a number of more affordable motorcycles offering it. In terms of performance, it's a very familiar affair with a tractable motor that pulls eagerly above 6000 RPM. Refinement was one area of concern after the RR310, and there is noticeable improvement in this regard. The handlebars on both the BMWs are rubber mounted, and while vibrations aren't completely absent, they are well controlled. Vibrations in the seat are almost non-existent, but both the R and the GS generate a buzz in the foot pegs above 6000 RPM. While the refinement levels on the BMW seem good enough to get along with comfortably, it has to be said that this engine is not as smooth as the one on the KTM 390 Duke. And with that, we come to the chassis. Interestingly enough, this isn't simply a case of two siblings dressed up in different outfits, and there are some substantial changes going on under the skin. Now both bikes do use the same frame and swing arm, but the GS gets a larger 19-inch front rim versus the 17-inch wheel on the R. The GS also runs more premium and adventure appropriate Metzeler Torrens tires against the Michelin Pilot Streets on the naked bike. But the biggest change of all is in the suspension travel, and the GS offers an impressive 180 mm of suspension travel at both ends, which is a good deal more than the R. In case you are wondering why the GS has such a tall seat height, well, there's your answer. And as you'd expect, all of this results in a rather profound effect on the riding experience.
The G310R is a sweet-natured and likable street motorcycle. It's sporty enough, but it's also comfortable, and that engine is calm, unhurried, and fast when you want it. If that sounds familiar, it's because this brand of performance is very similar to what the Apache RR310 offers, and the big difference really is on the TVS, you're sitting like this, and the BMW, it's more comfortable and upright. The G310 GS is a remarkably different feeling motorcycle, and the changes start right from the way you sit on it, with a very neutral riding position, a wider bar, and very substantial bodywork underneath you. You're also sitting higher up, and that long travel suspension is plush. I mean, you can just move it around like that, and that means excellent ride quality. This thing eats all the potholes that comes its way. You can sustain long distances without any concern. However, we simply haven't spent enough time with the bike to see how it handles. But I can tell you right now, this is not going to be a sharp and sporty handler, and it's all about long distance, easy and relaxed motorcycling. And considering it's an adventure bike, I think that's hit the nail on the head perfectly.
Both the small capacity BMWs are really likable motorcycles. I enjoyed riding the R much more than I anticipated, and the GS impresses strongly with its touring abilities. But there are a couple of problems. First, the dealer network is still tiny and there's only 7 outlets around the country, but there are more set to arrive soon. However, as you've probably guessed, the bigger issue comes in the price. Yes, the 3-year unlimited kilometer warranty is a great move, but it doesn't take away from the fact that these are expensive motorcycles. At Rs 2.99 lakh ex showroom, the G310R is a whole 76,000 rupees more expensive than the TVS Apache RR310, a bike which shares the entire rolling chassis, electricals, and even has the same engine spec. The TVS actually takes it 2 steps further with a full fairing and a set of expensive LED headlamps. More relevant though, the KTM 390 Duke costs nearly 60,000 rupees less, but offers about 30% more power, as well as a richer feature set that includes the likes of a powerful LED headlamp, a slipper clutch, and a TFT color display. And let's not forget, KTM is a premium European brand too, and the G310R is priced on par with the 390 Duke in most European countries, or even lower in some markets. To sum up, the G310R is a thoroughly likable machine, and will certainly appeal to those who want a quick and premium motorcycle that's calmer than the angry KTM. But while it is the most affordable way to get yourself a BMW motorcycle, it's not at all what you'd call affordable.
The GS is more expensive by a fair margin, but it makes a stronger argument. It has no immediate rivals in the country at the moment because the Royal Enfield Himalayan just doesn't have the power, and the Versys X300, well, that's actually really close to this bike in specification, but it's priced way too expensive. And as for that KTM 390 Adventure, it's not going to be here for at least another year. Now that actually places this bike in a sweet spot in our market because there's nothing else at this price point that can offer you this kind of capability, and I'm sure that the GS is going to be the more popular of the twins.
So this, as I'm sure you know, is the Mahindra TUV300. So what are we doing, reviewing it one more time? Well, it's simple. There's more of it this time. Say hello to the TUV300 Plus, and that means there's more than just the 405mm of extra car behind the rear wheels. It's also got bigger third row seats, it's got slightly bigger wheels, and it's even got a bigger engine. So there's definitely more to it than meets the eye. We've got to check it out. It's a TUV300 alright, and there's no mistaking it for anything else. Some may find it a bit too boxy and angular, but on the contrary, many others love it for its rugged simplicity and butch appeal. The wheelbase is the same, but the added length helps give it a better stance than the smaller TUV. It looks less abrupt. What also helps are the 16-inch wheels, a size up on the old 15 inches. And if you look closely, you'll see the fog lamp housings are a bit different. And no, you can't get this one with a contrast colored roof. Still, though the added length is an improvement, it still doesn't have the same squat stance as, say, a Scorpio. So that's what's new on the outside of the Plus. But the biggest change can be found on the inside. Now, of course, these are the seats I have to tell you about in detail because they are what make the TUV300 Plus what it is. Now, Mahindra claims that this is a 9-seater, but that would involve fitting 4 people in this space right here. They also claim that the regular TUV is a 7-seater, and we know that really isn't true. You can't very well fit 2 people in the back of that car. You can fit 2 people in the back here, but as you can tell, headroom is not very great. Your knees will probably bump into the passenger in front of you, and it's a really big climb from the outside into this back seat. But most of all, there are no seat belts back here. So, rather than seating people, perhaps it's better to use this vast area for a lot of luggage. Since the wheelbase is the same as the smaller cars, the middle row is unchanged too. And while that means a large, wide seat with generous thigh support and shoulder room for 3, leg room leaves a bit to be desired. We do, however, like the new quilted matte finish faux leather upholstery, which feels classier than the usual Rexine you might otherwise get. The front of the cabin is unchanged too, and though the design is refreshingly clean and uncluttered by Mahindra standards, and the build quality is pretty tough, it's not all perfect. For instance, the plastics are generally hard and scratchy, and though there are some storage areas, most of them feel too small or poorly positioned to be properly useful. But the biggest annoyance is trying to slot the 6-speed manual into reverse, as it's too close to first gear and there's no safety lock. By modern day segment standards, the TUV300 Plus, even in this top P8 spec, isn't the most generously equipped. And you have to remember it costs 10.98 lakh rupees ex-showroom. Sure, you get a touchscreen with navigation, steering mounted controls, rear parking sensors and electrically adjustable outside mirrors, but there's no auto climate control, no Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, and most of all, no rear view camera. So when it comes to creature comforts, rivals do it better. But let's see if the real benefits of the TUV300 Plus can be found out on the road. Now it may be a TUV300 in name and in appearance, but under the skin, it's actually quite closely related to a Scorpio. For one, it's about the same size as a Scorpio, and all TUVs use the modified version of the Scorpio chassis. But this one also has the Scorpio's engine and gearbox. That's right, it uses the 2.2 litre 4-cylinder diesel engine and 6-speed manual from the Scorpio. But it's not the maximum state of tune. This one makes 120 horsepower and 280 Newton meters of torque. Interestingly, those figures are just 20 horsepower and 20 Newton meters more than the 1.5 litre 3-cylinder in the regular TUV. However, this car feels significantly more effortless than that one did, and I'm sure if you loaded it up with passengers and luggage, there's where you'd find the real difference. This one would have a much easier time. So as in the Scorpio, this motor has a lot of pep off the line, and then it really wakes up properly past 2000 RPM. If you find yourself in a gear that's too high, you might get caught in a zone of off-boost lag, but it's a quick shift, a gear down, to get you back into the meat of the power band. Like with the Scorpio and the regular TUV, you have this long, tall gear lever. The clutch is light enough and the gear shifts also are reasonably light too, but it does feel a little bit rubbery and loose, and there are a lot of vibrations that come through the lever. Now this is meant to be a family car, and if it's fully loaded up for a road trip, you'll be really thankful for this 2.2 litre engine's strong, powerful mid-range. It really pulls very effortlessly and it will be great out on the highway. Now typical of this sort of ladder frame SUV, the suspension is set up quite soft. So it's really rather cushy and comfy, and it takes smaller bumps in its stride quite well. It's only that larger, sharper bumps will really thunk through and shake you around in the cabin, and it can be a little bit bouncy at times. But still, it's got pretty solid highway stability. So once again, a boon if you want to go on one of those long distance road trips. Now, as you might imagine, from a tall ladder frame SUV like this, there is a lot of body roll going around corners. And the steering too, it's quite heavy at low speeds, which makes parking a bit cumbersome. As you go faster, it does give you good confidence, but it's not bristling with feel, and overall this is not a car you want to drive for fun handling. The TUV300 Plus then is an interesting, if unusual, proposition. It slots in between the TUV300 and the Scorpio on price, and under the skin it's a mix of those two cars. It looks like its smaller sibling and is equipped similarly too, but it uses the bigger engine and 6-speed gearbox of the Scorpio. However, as a package, it sort of feels neither here nor there. It's lost the compactness of the regular TUV, and it doesn't feel quite as upmarket as the Scorpio. Plus, with both its siblings on either side of it and not much price difference in between, you might wonder if there was really room for another SUV between them. It gets some basics right, like space, comfort, and a feeling of toughness. But look beyond those and you'll find more attractive options both outside of Mahindra's stable and within it too.
Activa is a name synonymous with scooters in India, and Honda has achieved unparalleled success in the 110cc space. But when it comes to 125cc scooters, it's the Suzuki Axis as the undisputed king of the segment. It still remains a popular scooter for Suzuki, but competition has stepped up the game and Suzuki had to respond. And it has. With this, the new Burgman Street is the first maxi scooter offering from Suzuki for India. And like the Gixxer siblings and the Intruder, has been specifically developed for India. So does the new Suzuki Maxi scooter justify its premium pricing? Let's find out.
The major reason for the curiosity surrounding the Burgman Street is its maxi scooter styling. It looks good and the large proportion does make it visually appealing. The big front apron with the fly screen is the design highlight, and Suzuki designers have also neatly incorporated the LED headlights and turn indicators into this panel. Moving further, the generous step seats, chunky muffler and sculpted rear panels flow well with the overall design. The rear section is also well designed with large grab handles and the handsome LED taillights. However, the rear tire looks out of proportion and a fatter rubber would have been welcome purely for the visual effect. Before talking about features, I would like to mention the LED headlamps, which offer a great throw. These are easily among the best LED headlights in the affordable two-wheeler segment. Also, the LED position lamps surrounding the outer edge of the headlamp is a nice touch. The Burgman Street is also the first Suzuki scooter in India to get a fully digital instrument console. The layout is clean and uncluttered, which makes it easy to read on the go. It consists of a speedometer, odometer, 2 trip meters, clock and a fuel gauge. This is good level of kit, but not as comprehensive as the TVS NTORQ 125.
One of the aspects of the Burgman Street that will really appeal to the masses is the amount of storage space that it has on offer.
It features a cubby hole next to the multi-function key slot that can accommodate a 2-liter bottle. There's also an enclosed glove box under the handlebar which comes fitted with a 12-watt socket, while a USB charger is an option, but we would have liked an option to lock this compartment. Underseat storage capacity stands at 21.5 liters, same as the Axis 125, which Suzuki claims is the largest in the segment. It also gets aluminium foot peg, which adds to the scooter's premium factor. Fit and finish quality, as expected from Suzuki, is impressive.
With its snazzy styling and large dimensions, the Burgman Street is an attention magnet. Yes, the rear wheel is a bit small, but it isn't as unproportionate like, say, the Suzuki Intruder.
When you hop on board, you notice that the Burgman Street feels unlike any other scooter on sale. The wide handlebar, tall windscreen and large footboard make the new Suzuki scooter feel premium. Its riding position is upright and comfortable, and the Burgman Street gets flexible foot position. This allows you to stretch your legs out and place them on angled footrest molded into the apron. This is a clever addition and it improves comfort, helping make long commutes less tedious. In addition, the long and well-padded seat makes this a pillion-friendly scooter. Powering the new Suzuki offering is a tried and tested 124cc motor as seen on the Access 125. The air-cooled single-pot motor produces 8.7 horsepower and 10.2 Nm of torque.
Now, despite weighing 7 kg more than its sibling, the Burgman Street offers peppy acceleration. It also has a strong mid-range which makes overtaking in urban environments a breeze. Engine refinement is good, but the engine sounds a bit gruff at higher speeds. This being a short ride, we couldn't test the fuel efficiency of the Burgman Street. However, Suzuki claims a real-world mileage of 53 kmpl and it has a fuel tank capacity of 5.6 litres.
Gladly, the Burgman Street has carried forward the agility of the Access 125. And despite the new maxi scooter's large dimensions, you can squeeze it through traffic easily. The disc brake unit at front and the drum unit at the rear do a good job of shedding speed, while CBS is standard. Ride is compliant at sensible speeds, and the telescopic front fork and monoshock unit do a good job of absorbing bumps. We do have one complaint though, and that is with the restyled handlebar. The bar is set lower than that of the Axis, and if you're a tall rider, the bar ends brush against your knee while taking U-turns.
However, it's nice to see Suzuki taking a different path and offering something exclusive in a market filled with similar looking scooters with rather mundane styling. And exclusivity comes at a price tag, and in the Burgman's case at Rs 68,000 ex-showroom Delhi.